Hi, welcome to the Catholic Corner. I'm Monsignor Walter Nolan. Doesn't time seem to go fast? It seemed like yesterday when that big storm hit us, Sandy. I guess they call it the Superstorm. It was October 29th, 2012, hit the coast of New Jersey. ABC News reported that while Sandy was still hours away, Atlantic City, New Jersey already was under several feet of water. It took days, even weeks, to restore power and electricity to homes throughout the state. Many lost more than just power. According to the Asbury Park Press, there were at least 159 deaths in the United States, either directly or indirectly caused by Superstorm Sandy. 650,000 homes. Imagine that. 650,000 homes were damaged or destroyed. Some actually were just put into the bay or into the ocean. The total damage and economic losses was $65 billion. Here in our own diocese, the Diocese of Trenton, 65 parishes, schools, or diocesan entities were impacted. More than 160 buildings were damaged. My guests today were part of the diocesan recovery team, which helped restore the loss and damage to our properties. Today, they're going to tell us how they went about restoring these properties. Anthony Mingarino is the chancellor of our diocese and CAO of our diocese. Joseph Bianchi is the director of the Department of Administrative Services in our diocese. Joseph Cahill is a diocesan consultant for risk management for the Diocese of Trenton. Deacon Bill Wilson, he's the director of the Department of Construction and Property for the diocese. Well, I got four powerful people here on this program. Golly, you're like the four horsemen, I guess, who ran the ball to score all these touchdowns for us. Welcome to the Catholic Corner.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where do we begin? Maybe we'll just reflect back a couple of years ago what happened on that day and the day after the storm. I understand that St. Rose and Belmar was the hardest hit, although many, many other places were hit. Was that the first site that you visited, or?
Yes, Monsignor. I had been on the phone with Tony because of the impact of the storm. Communications were down, and we were unable to open that day. And I was talking with Tony, and then when I finished, I immediately got a call from Joanne Tier, who's superintendent of schools, and said, St. Rose in Belmar is in bad shape. Can you go look at it and see what's what? And I didn't know what to expect. And I drove up to St. Rose, and it was heartbreaking when I got there. The area was devastated. Water flooding everywhere. People had furniture out on the curb because their houses were fully flooded out. Houses were destroyed. And as I got closer and closer to the school, the flooding was really, really bad. We were wading through water. And we got up to the school and looked inside, and there were students there. Were Sister Kathy Neese, the principal.
There were students there that day?
Not in school,
Oh.
but they were there seeing the sun was out, and they were looking at, and they were trying to clean up. I looked inside the school, and what I saw was horrifying. There was about 4 feet of seawater on the first floor of the school, tons of dead fish, books and sneakers, athletic equipment, computers were all floating around. And just to get to the school...
Tons of dead fish?
Yes, there was probably about 800 pounds of dead fish were floating around. Several live turtles, one of which they named Sandy. They captured
I was going
it.
to say, I hope you saved the turtles.
Yes. And I was really shocked, and I became very concerned because I thought I had prepared the diocese for such a tragedy, and I really had no confidence that we were going to be okay looking at this. I remember I called Tony and I said, we've got some real problems here. We got to try to scrape some money together to pay these cleanup crews and so forth. And we talked, and Tony got me a check within a day, which we had a mass the following Sunday, 4 days after Sandy, where Bishop O'Connell went and said mass. We had to hook up generators because there was no power still. Things looked a little better, but there were all these families that had lost everything in the Belmar area from Sandy, and we did not know everywhere we had been hit. So that's where we started to begin the recovery from Sandy was right there at St. Rose. And then as time went on, in the weeks that followed, we learned of more places. Tony, you'll remember, we learned about St. Denis and Manasquan and St. Pio and Lavalette and Long Beach Island, where Joe and Bill have done a lot of work. And it took literally to after Christmas because before we realized the full scope of what had hit us, because we couldn't get to these sites. They were sealed off because of breakages with bridges and power lines and so forth.
Tony, what do you remember about that day?
Well, I remember watching in horror as the storm came up the coast, and they were predicting it was going to make a left turn. And sure enough, it did. What we didn't know was where the damage was going to be. They were saying it was going to hit the coast at Atlantic City, which I believe it did, but the damage was to the north of that. And I recall reaching out to as many pastors as I was able to reach by cell phone to find out an early assessment of what the damage may be, so that in this way I was able to alert Joe to what was going on. We knew we had an insurance, but the devastation was such that we didn't know if the insurance was going to be sufficient to cover all the damage that was out there.
Tell me a little bit about those initial days of people helping people. I mean, I'm always not amazed, because I love God and believe in God and the greatness of our own church and faith. But it just seems that when something happens, you know, a lot of sanctity, in a sense, also happens at the same time. What were some of the things that you were witnessing? You mentioned a little bit, Joe, right away. I mean, kids were there helping the nuns, and what other places or what other things were happening that you might have been involved in?
Well, right at St. Rose, I was really worried, terrified I actually felt over my head. I didn't have the confidence in myself to be able to serve the diocese. And I said, Lord, give me some help here. I'm over my head and I need help badly. And thank God he sent the right people to help me. And that's why we were successful.
Who were some of these right people?
Tony was helpful with money, getting money together, because bills
Tony's
are...
got lots of dough. Uncle Tony,
The bills were enormous. Joe has outstanding analytical skills, and he was able to help us with the claim preparation. Bill has an extremely good background in construction, and each piece of this had to be managed so carefully. And what we did was we took an assessment of what we were dealing with. We tried to figure out how we could get by day. We appealed to our insurer, Lexington, who within 2 weeks got us $5 million to help pay the bills of the restoration. And we started rolling forward. None of us had any experience with superstorms or hurricanes. We just tried to use common sense.
All of the world did. That literally was a storm that, well, I want to say it'll never happen again, but it certainly, all the factors had to come at the right place. Right. When you said it made that left turn, I think there was more than one left turn. It just kind of made a circle and just...
One of the biggest concerns we had was we only had $10 million of flood insurance, which I thought was more than enough. When Tony came on, we started the program, and our biggest flood was $100,000. So I insured it for 100 times that. And it has been a real challenge to work within that budget, which right now I ask Joe every day, how much cushion do we have? And he says, well, we're about 200,000 safe to our limit. So our bills have been about, just for flood alone, have been about $9.8 million. And we don't, and just this morning I said, Joe, we're not going to go above that, right?
So the total cost was almost $10 million? Is that what you're saying?
Just for flood.
Right. The total damage was $13.3 million.
For the whole hurricane.
Wind damage. Including wind.
Right.
Now, were you insured also besides flood for wind?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we have.
Yes,
we have
absolutely.
a lot of insurance for something like that.
Because I think we all learned a lot of lessons about insurance.
Yes.
Like, you said, well, how about this? Oh, the wind guy takes care of that. No, the flood. I mean, it's like,
we went through that
which,
too.
Which guy is going to...
We went through that as well. Like the roof was blown partially off St. Rose Grammar School. Now that's a wind problem, so that we paid for that restoration out of our overall wind budget. But the complexity here was making sure the kids got back in school right away. Not only at St. Rose, but at all the schools that were hurt. And they had college applications to fill out. I mean, Sister Kathy was heartbroken. She wanted to get her school going again. She wanted to get the kids get the basketball games going and really having the kids enjoy their experience at St. Rose. So that was, fortunately, was opened within 2 weeks. The first floor was devastated because it was all flood.
Well, the first floor at St. Rose is underground, so it was easy to flood.
It's below.
Low ground,
Low
low
grade.
grade,
Right.
yeah.
Ah.
That's why it was such.
And
Such
the
devastation.
ocean and the river kind of
Came
joined together.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So Bill managed the reconstruction of that. And we had to take it all apart and put it back together again, right,
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, it was amazing. There was work everywhere, all along the coast. All the parishes needed reconstruction. Lots of it too. And especially St. Rose. St. Rose was the biggest. They had a tremendous amount of damage.
How long did it take you to get the school back working again?
It was opened in 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
we didn't finish it until the following September, where we had everything really totally restored. The theater and the classrooms in the basement. We were using classrooms up top. So we got them going. The gym was going. Activities were happening.
Got to get that gym going.
Oh, yeah.
Sports are important,
Oh,
Monsignor, to
tell me
kids.
about it.
Yeah. And then we built it and worked it from there, and Bill managed the whole reconstruction process. And we even had a flood after. While we were fixing it, we got
Yeah.
another small flood. So it was really a tough situation to cope with. St. Rose alone cost $5 million to restore. That was probably our biggest site. And then we had the St. Denis Grammar School.
Right.
And then St. Pio.
And one of the problems was we couldn't even get to the sites for weeks and months after the storm because of the devastation and the looting. State police, you had to have a police escort. National Guard were covering the highways. It was very difficult to even get in there to work.
Wasn't there even a section of one of the roads that was cut off and almost they had to build the road back again? Or I don't know.
That would have been between Sacred Heart and St. Pio. There was a bridge that went out.
Mantaloking.
there,
Mantaloking.
Mantaloking.
and couldn't get through. And in fact, to get into that area, we had to get a police escort. So we had the pastors meet in Toms River, and the police actually took them in as far as they were able to go, just to assess the damage.
Now that's almost 2 years ago.
Yes.
Is there any place that's not up and running, or some buildings?
Everything's restored
Everything's restored.
Everything.
So every
We're
parish is
finished.
now open, every school's open, and everything.
and fully restored.
Yeah.
All the bills are paid.
As if nothing ever happened.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
I wouldn't say that.
Well, in some cases,
exactly.
Monsignor, it's better than
It's
it was.
better.
Yeah.
Right, because it's new. It's fully restored.
Let me ask this question if I can. When you say it's fully restored, I mean, I know some areas of the shore, what would I say, home-wise, they have to build up now certain heights. Did you have to build up any churches higher than they were before? Or what did you is there any rules of insurance, Joe?
Joe, what did you talk about that?
No, well, it would be very difficult to elevate a number of the churches because of the age and the type of construction. But one of the things that we've been looking at is flood mitigation. And, our primary focus right now is on St. Rose and St. Denis, the schools, to see if we can do some reconstruction that will keep the buildings themselves from flooding in the future, either with flood barricades or with actually a re-engineering of the entrances, which is what the problem was at St. Rose. Some of the entrances were below grade. You actually walked down into the building, and when the water broke the doors down, water seeks the lowest level, and it flooded the sub-basements and it flooded the administrative wing. I mean, while the reconstruction was going on and they were trying to repair all those areas, there was a lack of space in the building, and they ended up having to put trailers in to house administrative offices and certain classrooms at St. Rose. And that lasted for almost a year.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, the reconstruction and the renovation of St. Rose was actually just recently concluded. I think they just finished the last pieces of it, just at the beginning of the summer.
So is there insurance now?
Yes.
Yes,
Because
we
with
have.
flood insurance, they got all these rules that have been changing, ups and
It's
downs.
more
and-
costly now, though, but we have
Oh,
insurance.
More costly.
Yeah, the premium is
Surprise, right?
He was very nice with that. Very.
And
More
there's a higher flood sublimit as well. So we have more coverage than we had before. Before we had 10 million, and I think, Joe, we have 35 million now?
no 18.
18 million.
18 million. which we feel is enough, and we're looking at it closely. Our insurer Lexington has really been magnificent, because I was always pestering them for money, and they've advanced us something like $11 million so far.
Yes.
And we have not spent any money from diocesan funds or parish or anything we took out of the collection. It's all been used for restoration. It's all been insurance or a grant that was received from the National Conference of Catholic Bishops, and that's how we've paid all our bills.
What about the collection that you took them? What was that money used for?
That was used for the operation of the organizations that were impacted.
Monsignor, you made the comment that there were people came forward to help. That's a story unto itself, because we found out that these parishes had organizations in place that sprung into action immediately. The Catholic Church was on the front lines of this, giving help and assistance to all those parishioners. Not only parishioners, but anyone who needed help received help from them. So the collections that we had in the parish went to support that effort. And Sister Joanne Dress, Executive Director of Catholic Social Services, distributed those funds. The funds that we were responsible on this end came from insurance, and the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops authorized collections throughout the country. And we received a portion of that for the purpose of reconstruction of buildings.
So the day that this all happened, you were in charge, Joe,
Yes.
of making sure this all went about.
Yes.
And then
Right.
Joseph, what did you have to do that day?
Well, actually, I wasn't even a part of the team at that point.
Okay.
I came in a little later on as the heavy lifting was finished to
There was a link missing, so that
Yes,
you came to
yes.
fill that link.
to
Right.
coordinate with the insurance company
Good.
and to coordinate with the parishes for the claims filing process, and also as a liaison to FEMA, as you know, we were looking to obtain some grant funding from FEMA to.
Because FEMA's the
Federal.
federal insurer, so to
Right,
speak, for
right.
floods and et cetera. Huh?
Right.
Yeah, Bill, just knowing that all of this damage went on, was your office impacted? I mean, did you have to go down and
Yeah.
survey some of the buildings and say this is
Yeah.
condemned or not
Yeah.
condemned, or was anything condemned? I don't know.
I don't think we had anything condemned.
But there were churches that you didn't have
Oh, they
mass
had-
in for a while.
Oh, they were out a long time.
So
Long Beach Island was out a long
They
time.
were out till Father's Day. They had
Yeah,
their first mass
yeah.
the following Father's Day
Following
in mid-June.
Father's
was
Day.
that the eye right over Long Beach Island or
Yeah.
part of Long Beach Island? That's the way it came in, I
But
think.
they
I believe it was actually a little south of that, but the damage
Damage
was
was
on
all
the north,
north.
was on the north side of the hurricane. So while we didn't receive the eye, we received the heaviest damage, I think, along the coast.
Were there teams, like you mentioned, every parish has a lot goes on in a parish. Were there organizations that all of a sudden, just like St. Vincent de Paul or other organizations that just sprung into action to help the poor people or help construction?
Yes.
Or how did people lose their homes? They had to get placed
Yes.
to live someplace?
Yes.
And that is still ongoing, that
Yes.
effort.
And there's stories of people who had lost their homes were at the churches volunteering their services. It's amazing.
So the St. Vincent de Paul Society are the organizations that we know and we recognize. What was truly amazing to me was the organizations within a parish, and it might have been just the St. Rose social outreach concern that sprung into action, not just St. Rose, but all those parishes. They have organized groups of individuals who sprang into action, knew exactly what to do, and just mobilized everything that they had in an extraordinary way. We should be very proud of them.
Yeah, I don't know if people have ever seen some of the videos or whatever of the areas, because there were, like you had mentioned, Tony, people sprung in action. There were boats out there in the seaweed or whatever it was. I mean, and people somehow got out there and helped each other and not only just the humanness, but also to bring back some of the
Yes.
material, things that people needed to live, survive, have some fun with, and et cetera. So anything changing in the diocese now that you have, hopefully, God bless us, that we never see another storm like this again. But you mentioned that you weren't insured. Anything else that
Well, we have
we're doing?
plans to develop a plan to send to the parishes, so in case there is the advent of an emergency, There'll be steps to take, step 1, step 2, and so on, which we didn't have before.
Right. It doesn't just have to be a hurricane. It could be a blizzard. It could be, some other disaster that
Fire.
takes place. But so that there's a response plan in place, not only for the parishes, but a way to coordinate it within the diocese as
Can
well.
you tell us a little bit more about that response plan? Because I'm so glad to hear that it's not just a hurricane.
No.
I mean, who knows what we're going to have to do in the future, the way the world is today. What is the plan? What happens
Well,
now?
we're in the process of developing that. We're looking at the things that worked really well and making sure that we do those again. The things that didn't work as we expected.
What were some of the things that worked really well?
Well, I think one of the things that worked really well is the coordination through the construction
Well,
office.
on the construction end, we took it on our own, from our own office, to man the job with supervisory personnel, because the contractors we were dealing with were going to probably cost us money rather than save us money. So in the long run, by having our own people supervise through the office, we were able to save money and keep the costs down.
With a large disaster as occurred, there are fewer available quality
Yes.
reconstruction specialists that can step into place. And a lot of the parishes actually had good relationships with their electrical firms, their HVAC providers. Most of them didn't have cleanup companies on retainer, so that was kind of a different issue for us to deal with. And we're going to put those things in place beforehand. So if an issue arises again, we don't have to go looking for somebody. We have somebody that we know is going to be able to step in, do the job. We're going to know what it's going to cost us, and we're going to know what the scope is going to be.
What we were very good at before the storm was managing local disasters or local problems. If a parish had a problem of flood, people knew what they had to do and they went to it. What we didn't have experience on was a disaster of this magnitude. And it was through primarily Joe, who led that group, getting the right people in the right places to do the things that were necessary to recover, and to ensure that the funds that we had in the diocese that we were getting from the insurance company were used the way they were supposed to have been used. It was a great learning experience. We learned a lot, and we're going to put into place a plan to handle not only nature's disasters, but any disaster that befalls us. I think we're now in a position to have a playbook in front of us and to know how we are to respond before it happens.
It's the cross and the resurrection.
All right?
We can always learn from something to make sure that
Right.
Tell me, I love stories. Give me a story of where a parish kind of really got themselves together and helped each other, and now are thriving again.
Dave?
It seems they all have stories, and the most interesting story. Well, I think one of the most interesting stories may be on, and it's really not so much about the parish as it is about the outreach that was there, and that would be Long Beach Island, who has a St. Francis Brand Beach, has an outreach center that their property was devastated. They picked up their social outreach activity, and they moved it inland and continue to serve those who were affected inland. Gave these gentlemen the opportunity to get their properties into good shape so they can eventually move back. And there was just wonderful stories of people coming together. But those stories are repeated throughout, all along the coast. Every one of those parishes has a story to tell. And I think Bill said it too, that many times there were people who lost their own houses, who were out there trying to restore the property and trying to help the parish get back on its feet.
The greatness of people.
Yes.
Yes.
It never ceases to.
The heart.
I can't say amaze me, because I expect it almost.
Right.
But people really do, whether it's a disaster like this or other things, or people just need each other. Boy, I tell you, God's instinct inside of them just comes to the forefront.
That's the lesson I learned. God
Yeah.
helps people through people, and Sandy was a marvelous example of that.
Anything that you have to really change a lot of, I mean, are there are there parishes maybe who've lost a lot of families because of Sandy that maybe haven't moved back, or the parishes have changed?
There are a few.
Yeah.
There are a few where, population hasn't returned, especially in some of the places where, it was a retirement community, where they may not have had the ability to, because of, lack of income or fixed income, to raise their house, or they were living in retirement in a coastal area, and it just wasn't reasonable for them to go back into that situation. So there has been a relocation, in certain places. Long Beach Island is one in particular. The year-round residency has definitely been reduced. And someone had told me at one time they thought it was somewhere around 3,000 families, permanent resident, year-round residents.
That have not returned.
That have not returned. And that's a difficult thing, and I think that you'll probably find that along the entire coast. I know that's the situation.
Lavallette's the same thing, right?
Lavalette is that way. Keensburg is that way. Little Lake Harbor, Tuckerton, same thing. There were people who have not returned. Some of it because they lost their jobs, others because they lost their homes, some because they can't afford to raise their homes.
Is the government now helping some people along with what you're doing? In other words, if to raise a home.
They're trying, but I think that not only in the state of New Jersey, but in the state of New York, they've had difficulties, getting the federal money to the actual homeowner. The rules and regulations are difficult to deal with at best, and it's been 2 years, and people are still trying.
But you can see as you drive around what would I say, the landscape is changing even.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Homes are getting higher or whatever's
Yes.
happening, and but it's nice to know that so much good has happened, and that people are starting to thrive, and people are starting to come back, and people are starting to. With about 30 seconds to go, what would we tell our families to help each other in the future?
I would say the Catholic Church was on the front lines of this.
Yes.
And I think we proved ourselves. Our people proved themselves, because while their churches were devastated, they still had strong faith, and they packed the churches that were not devastated.
Joseph?
I'd say trust God to help you.
Joseph?
And pray.
Yeah, and pray.
Keep praying.
Keep praying.
Keep praying.
God bless, not only gentlemen like this, but folks like yourselves. There's a great kingdom, and God just keeps bringing it up to places where we are. Help each other, pray for each other, work with each other, no matter who we are, and keep the dignity of every single human person. God bless. But pray. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
Monsignor.
Thank you, Monsignor.